If everyone is comfortable with you, you've already made yourself irrelevant. Think about it. No resistance, no tension, no one pushing back. You move through conversations carefully. You choose words that won't offend. You adjust your tone depending on who you're speaking to. You think that's intelligence, but it's not. It's self-erasure. Because the more you try to be acceptable to everyone, the less defined you become. And undefined people are easy to ignore. They don't trigger reactions. They don't create friction. They don't force attention. They exist, but they don't register. Most people spend years like this, trying to be liked, trying to stay safe, trying to avoid the discomfort of disagreement. But what they don't realize is this: the moment you remove friction, you remove presence. Because presence is not built in comfort, it's built at the edge of tension. The moment you say something real, someone will disagree. The moment you take a position, someone will push back. And that reaction is not a problem, it's a signal that you've stepped out of the background. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this long before modern psychology ever explained it. A man without enemies is a man no one is paying attention to. Because without opposition, there is no contrast, and without contrast, there is no identity. So the question is not, why do some people dislike you? The real question is, have you said anything strong enough to make them? If you're here for comfort, this isn't for you. But if you're ready to understand how power actually works, subscribe. Because what you're about to learn is not about conflict. It's about control. Creating enemies is not failure, it is placement. Most people misunderstand this completely. They think enemies appear because something went wrong, because a line was crossed, because something should have been avoided, so they spend their lives trying to reduce friction, smoothing everything, diluting their words, softening their presence. They believe peace is power. But in reality, constant peace creates invisibility, because when nothing pushes against you, nothing defines you. That's the part most people never see. An enemy is not just opposition, it is a mirror. It reveals where you stand. It exposes your boundaries, your standards, your limits. Without that reflection, you remain vague, and vague people are never taken seriously. This is why small enemies matter, not large ones, not chaotic conflict, not emotional reactions, but small, controlled, deliberate resistance, the kind that appears when you stop adjusting yourself for everyone else, the kind that forms when you say something clearly and refuse to soften it. These enemies don't destroy you, they define you, they force clarity into your environment. People begin to understand who you are, what you tolerate, and what you reject. And once that clarity exists, you are no longer optional. Because people don't navigate around unclear individuals, they navigate around defined ones. This is the shift. You don't create enemies to fight. You create them to establish position, to introduce tension into a space that would otherwise ignore you, to make your presence structured, not accidental. Because power is never random, it is shaped, and small enemies are one of the tools that shape it. And if no one reacts to you, you are not a factor. That's the reality most people avoid. They think staying neutral protects them, keeps things smooth, keeps relationships intact. But neutrality doesn't protect you, it erases you. Because in any environment, social, professional, or personal, attention is not given to what is safe. It is given to what creates contrast. And contrast only appears when something pushes back. Look closely. The people who are remembered are never the ones who tried to blend in. They are the ones who made others feel something. Agreement, discomfort, resistance. It doesn't matter which. What matters is reaction. Because reaction confirms presence. Without it, you move unnoticed. You speak, but nothing shifts. You act, but nothing changes. You exist, but no one adjusts to you. And if no one adjusts to you, you hold no influence. This is where most people get trapped. They measure success by how many people approve of them. But approval is passive. It doesn't require attention. It doesn't require thought. It doesn't require recalibration. Resistance does. The moment someone disagrees with you, they are forced to engage. They analyze you. They think about your position. They respond to your presence. You become part of their awareness. And that is where power begins. Not when people agree with you, but when they can't ignore you, because being ignored is the lowest position you can occupy. It means you haven't defined yourself strongly enough to interrupt the environment around you. So understand this clearly. If no one resists you, it doesn't mean you're doing things right, and it means you haven't done anything that matters yet. Weak people accidentally create enemies. They speak without thinking, react emotionally, escalate situations they don't understand, and then they call it conflict. But strong individuals operate differently. They don't stumble into opposition. They place it, deliberately, quietly, precisely. Because a small enemy is not chaos. It is structure. It creates a visible line, a boundary that didn't exist before. The moment you stop agreeing with everything, the moment you stop adjusting your position to fit the room, that line appears, and someone will step against it. That person becomes your first point of resistance, not because they hate you, but because you've made a decision clear enough to be challenged. This is where most people panic. They try to fix it, soften it, and explain themselves, but that's where they lose the advantage, because that small resistance was doing something important. It was defining you. It was telling the environment, this is what he accepts, this is what he rejects, this is where he stops. Without that line, you are open to everything, and what is open to everything stands for nothing. Small enemies give your presence edges. They make your behavior predictable in a powerful way. People begin to understand how to approach you, where to push and where not to. That predictability creates respect, not comfort, respect. Because now, you are no longer adapting to the environment. The environment is adjusting to you. And that shift only happens when something resists you. So understand this clearly. You don't create enemies to fight them. You allow them to exist because they hold your position in place. They are not disruptions, they are markers. And without markers, you are invisible. Comfort hides weakness. It gives you the illusion that you're in control, that you're sharp, that you're ready. But comfort doesn't test you. It protects you from being exposed. You can sound confident when no one challenges you. You can appear composed when nothing is at risk. You can believe you're disciplined when nothing demands discipline. But the moment pressure enters the room, everything changes. Your tone shifts. Your thinking tightens or collapses. Your emotions either stay controlled or take over. This is the moment where your real level is revealed, not the version of you that exists in comfort, but the version that exists under observation. Small enemies create that pressure. They question you, they disagree with you, they watch for your reaction. And in that moment, you don't get to perform. You get exposed. Every hesitation becomes visible. Every inconsistency gets noticed. Every emotional reaction becomes data. This is why most people avoid resistance, because they don't want to see themselves clearly. But those who understand power learn to move toward it, because pressure does something comfort never can. It forces precision. You stop speaking loosely, you choose words carefully. Most people don't fail because they're weak. They fail because they're too acceptable. You control your tone. You eliminate unnecessary movement. You become intentional. And intention is what separates presence from noise. Over time, this changes you. You stop reacting automatically. You stop needing approval. You stop adjusting under pressure. Instead, you hold your position, calm, measured, controlled. And that is when something shifts. People stop testing you, not because they like you, but because they recognize you don't break under pressure. And once that is clear, you are no longer just present. You are respected. No one attacks what doesn't matter. Think about that carefully. People don't spend time analyzing, criticizing, or resisting something that has no impact. They ignore it completely. So if you move through life with zero opposition, no pushback, no disagreement, no tension, it doesn't mean you're respected. It means you're not being considered. Because attention is selective, it flows toward what feels relevant, what feels significant, what feels worth reacting to. And reaction is a form of recognition. This is where perception shifts. Most people see enemies as a problem, but in reality, they are proof. Proof that your presence is being registered, proof that your actions are creating movement, proof that your position is strong enough to be challenged. Because if it wasn't, no one would bother. Look at any high-status individual. They are never universally accepted. There is always resistance, always criticism, always someone watching closely, waiting, questioning. And that tension does something powerful. It elevates them, not because they seek conflict, but because conflict signals importance. It tells the environment, this person matters enough to respond to. And people read that instinctively. They don't just listen to what you say, they observe how others react to you. Yet if no one reacts, you appear neutral. If people resist, you appear significant. This is social proof at a deeper level, not approval, attention, and attention is the currency of status. So when small enemies appear, don't rush to eliminate them. Understand what they represent. They are indicators, signals that your presence has weight, because invisibility is quiet, but relevance creates noise. And if there is noise around you, it means you are no longer being overlooked. You are being measured. This is where the game shifts. Up to this point, most people understand resistance as something to manage. But here, it becomes something to use, because attention is limited. People can only focus on what is visible, what is loud, what is reacting in front of them. And small enemies naturally pull attention. They question you. They watch you. And they try to interpret your actions. They become focused on your surface. And that focus is an opportunity. Because while they are studying what you show, they are missing what you don't. This is where control begins. You don't respond to everything. You don't correct every assumption. You don't clarify every move. You allow certain things to remain visible. Small disagreements, minor tensions, controlled friction, enough to keep attention occupied. Because once people are engaged at that level, they stop looking deeper. They believe they understand you. They think they've figured you out, and that belief lowers their guard. While they stay focused on the obvious, you move in the quiet. You adjust positioning. You build connections. You make decisions without drawing attention to them. This is not avoidance. It's direction. You are guiding where attention goes, and more importantly, where it doesn't. Most people make the mistake of trying to control everything openly. They explain too much, reveal too much, react too quickly, and in doing so, they expose their entire strategy. But when you allow small enemies to engage the surface, you create layers. A visible layer that people react to, and a hidden layer where real movement happens. This is controlled misdirection, not deception for chaos, but positioning for advantage. Because power is rarely in what people see, it's in what they overlook. So understand this clearly. You don't eliminate every small enemy. Sometimes, you let them stay exactly where they are, because while they are busy watching you, you are already somewhere else. And by the time they realize it, the position has already shifted. And this is where most people fail, not because they create enemies, but because they don't control them. They let tension grow unchecked. They react emotionally. They escalate situations they should have contained, and slowly, what was once manageable becomes dangerous. This is the line you cannot cross because small enemies are useful, but large enemies are costly. They consume time, drain focus, force you into defensive positions, and once you are defending, you are no longer controlling. You are reacting. That is the shift, and it's the shift that destroys position. This is why control is not optional, it is everything. You don't just allow resistance to exist. You regulate it, you decide how much tension is visible, how far it goes, and when it stops, you don't respond to every challenge, you don't engage every opponent. And most importantly, know that you don't let emotions dictate escalation, because emotion expands conflict. Control contains it. Strong individuals understand something critical. Not every enemy deserves access. Not every disagreement deserves attention, and not every situation deserves to grow. Sometimes the most powerful move is to limit exposure, to reduce interaction, to restrict access, to keep distance, because proximity creates escalation, and distance maintains control. This is not avoidance, it is discipline. You are choosing the scale of tension. You are deciding how much energy enters your space, and that decision protects your position because the goal is never chaos. It is stability with edge, enough resistance to define you, never enough to overwhelm you. And so understand this clearly. If you lose control of the scale, you lose control of the situation, and once that happens, you are no longer shaping the environment. The environment is shaping you. And in that position, power disappears. Most people will hear this and quietly reject it, not because it's wrong, but because it's uncomfortable. It challenges the way they've been taught to move, to speak, to exist around others. They've been trained to believe that being liked is safety, that agreement builds connection, that avoiding tension keeps things under control. So they will go back to what feels familiar. They will soften their words. They will adjust their opinions. They will reduce themselves just enough to stay accepted. And over time, they will become easy to overlook. Not because they lack ability, but because they lack definition. Because in trying to belong everywhere, they stand nowhere. And people sense that. They may not say it directly, but they feel it. A lack of edge, a lack of presence, a lack of weight. And without weight, nothing you say stays. But a few people will hear this differently. They won't see enemies as problems, they will see them as signals. Indicators that something is working, that a position has been taken, that a boundary has been made visible. They will stop chasing universal approval and start building controlled tension. They will understand that respect is not built through comfort. It is built through contrast, through clarity, through resistance, through the quiet decision to no longer adjust for everyone. And in that shift, something changes. People begin to watch them differently, not casually, but carefully. Because when you are clearly defined, people don't relax around you. They calculate you. They measure your words. They observe your behavior. They think before they respond. And that is the moment everything turns. Because once people start calculating you, you are no longer background. You are a presence. And presence is the foundation of power. So this was never about creating conflict. It was about creating position. A position that cannot be ignored. A position that does not bend easily. A position that introduces just enough tension to be remembered. If you see the shift now, subscribe. Because here we don't teach you how to be accepted. We teach you how to be recognized, measured, and respected. And once you reach that point, you don't need attention. Attention finds you.